Hello and welcome to the Love Vibe podcast, hosted by Angela and Key, two women from the African diaspora creating space to explore and celebrate the sometimes unheard voices, stories and storytellers that speak to triumph and healing in the face of adversity and trauma. We will look at our connections to ourselves, to others, the environment, ancestry and the stars. Yes, astrology. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We welcome you to join us. Now, let's start the show.
Welcome back to another episode of The Love Vibe. I'm Key, and I have with me today...
I'm Angela.
my lovely co-host. I think today we're going to tackle the Chiron topic that has kind of been weaved throughout pretty much almost every episode now. I think it's a pretty, I'm pretty passionate about it, clearly. So yeah, we're going to dive into that. We'll kind of set it up and let you know like what Chiron is, where you can find it in your chart, what the glyph is, all of that. And then I think we're just going to have a conversation about sort of how Chiron is working in our lives, because we're in some pretty significant Chiron episodes at the moment. So Chiron, if you do or don't know, is called the wounded healer. It's believed that Chiron is sort of our deepest soul wound at like the soul level sort of thing. And the one that we're kind of obsessed with figuring out over the course of our life. The symbol the glyph for Chiron it looks like a key. So it's like a little circle with a line up and a K at the top. So wherever that is in your chart, that's where your Chiron wound is. And one that you should probably focus on because it's a good one to overcome. Another interesting fact about Chiron is the orbit of Chiron is 50 years. So there's about, I guess, if you divide that into four, there's four sort of significant points in your life where Chiron sort of activates, essentially. One is at about 12 and a half. The next one's at about 25. The next one's at about 37. And then your Chiron return happens when you hit 50. And that means that it returns to the same position. It transits to the same position that it was in your natal chart. And at that point, it is believed that you would have overcome your Chiron wound. And at 37, which is that kind of the third stage, that's where Chiron squares natally the transit. And that's the I guess transition that I'm in at the moment. So I'm pretty keen to chat about these two sort of pivotal moments of Chiron in our lives and talk about sort of our Chironic symptoms, I like to call them. So I had a look at your chart, and it looks like Chiron is in Aries in your 10th house. Now, when I say that, I know a lot of people are probably like, what the fuck does all of that mean? So there's 12 zodiac signs and there's 12 houses. And so each house is ruled by a zodiac sign, and what sign that is in your chart just depends on how your chart's laid out. So my 10th house is ruled by Taurus. Your 10th house is ruled by Aries. And the planet that rules that particular house tends to kind of operate at a level of sort of the state of awareness around the themes that happen within that 10th house. And the themes in that 10th house are kind of like how that state of awareness plays out in your life, if that is a little difficult to explain, but if that makes sense. So the 10th house is about sort of your work, your career, your legacy. It can also be about parents, and we'll dig into that a little bit during this topic as well. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. And Aries for you is about ego. But it's also about sort of in terms of, I think your 10th house, it kind of plays out in your response to others. Okay. how you respond to others, and sort of, your assertiveness, I guess. It's like your wound may be somewhere around how assertive you are in your work environment, in your public life, in your legacy, and all of that jazz. Does that resonate a little bit? Like, can you see some of those things? Yeah.
It does, for sure.
Yeah,
it does, for sure. In the podcast that we did previously about our journeys to Australia, I talked a little bit about landing in rural or country Victoria, and in terms of the workplace, and about how in terms of having to, I felt as if I had to assert myself a little bit in the workplace. Because I kind of had this feeling that it was like this uppity black girl. Who the hell does she think she is? And I'm like, I've been doing this for 15 years. I spent 5 years to study this. So yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
But knowing that there's consequences. Do you know what I mean? Not doing it just to do it, but it's like knowing that there's consequences, particularly in the workspace. So that kind of makes quite a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, cool. Well, good. That's good. That means it's a little bit accurate anyway. But I did want to ask you, so because you're coming up on your Chiron return, and what we know about sort of Chiron is it's the wound that we have, but we work throughout our lives to overcome, to heal that wound. And therefore we go on to help heal others as well. Because we become sort of like an expert in that area of where the wound was. And so with your Chiron return coming up, with the Chiron return, what we typically see is sort of a lot of like breakthroughs, like major breakthroughs in our lives. We want to transform a lot of things. We want to, this wasn't working, or, I've done this is complete. And now I feel like I need to turn over sort of a new page situation. So I see you nodding a lot. Are you?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, as anyone who's listened to this podcast knows, I've done social work for so many years. And I've just come to the conclusion that I've come to an end. That part of my life is ending, and has ended for me in my head and in my heart anyway. So yeah, there is a big transformation when you dedicate yourself to just to one thing. I'm not a millennial. I'm not chopping and changing. And so that makes absolute sense. And probably in the next 2 years, I think that there's going to be some massive changes for me in terms of what I'm doing, in terms of where I'm living, in terms of how I'm living, in terms of my ideas of community. Because I think probably up until now, work has been everything. Work has been my confidence, my self-esteem, my passion, my knowledge, my obviously my work source, my financial source. So it is in the next 2 years for me is going to be very different, very different.
That's awesome. And I think that really sort of plays out with the Chiron return, because I think your Chiron return happens officially in 2 years.
There we go.
Yeah, in 2 years.
That's my plan in 2 years. All of these transformations, that's my intention.
That's really cool. So my Chiron is also in the 10th house, but it's in Taurus. And that kind of plays out in my ability to sort of manifest, but also when it comes to work, a feeling of like being pressured to perform, or pressured to do certain things without taking the time that I need to sort of work out, what I want to do, how I want to do it, how I'm feeling about it, that sort of thing. And I think if I look back sort of over my life, I can definitely see where I didn't trust myself I guess is the easiest way to say it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't do the things that I knew I needed because I wanted to perform, because I wanted to be what someone else wanted me to be, instead of really sort of honing in on myself. And now that I am 37, which if we, we work out the different stages of Chiron, at 37, Chiron squares each other. And
what does a square mean?
It means it's the degree at which they're separated.
Okay. So it's a certain degree number, is it? Or
no,
it's
position.
Okay.
So like an opposition is 180 degrees. But a square is, I want to say 90 degrees.
Would be 90, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I don't have my notes in front of me. Like I can't find them, when I need them. I can't find nothing.
90 on every thing, isn't it?
Yeah, 90 degrees. I was correct. Yes. So square is 90 degrees. So essentially, my natally, it's in my 10th house, and where it is in transit at the moment, because the planets are always orbiting, but in my natal chart, it's in one position. So the transit is where it is when it's orbiting right now, and it's 90 degrees away from So, but in your chart, it'll be conjunct, so it'll be right on top of each other. And so that's our Chiron return.
So when my Chiron returns, does that mean I'm done?
Essentially, yeah.
That wound.
Yeah, essentially.
Is there like a test?
I think the test is your life. Do you know what I mean? Like I think the test has been happening throughout your life. I think once it returns, then that's when you'll feel that prison being let open, and you'll be sort of let out of that, and you'll be moving into a space where that transformation that you wanted to take place actually happens, and maybe it's a situation where you teach other people how to, I don't know, be assertive, or, your gifts could be, I don't know.
Would it be like showing people like what you've done?
Yeah. Showing people what you've done, but also probably, I think, learning how to factor in the reality of human sensitivity. Because that's something I think you touched on when you said about the consequence, right? Like the consequence of being assertive. So learning that balance of, you can still be assertive, but you don't have to piss people off or, be, whatever the situation is. So it might be something around helping people understand and learn about human sensitivity and why that's important, and why we should always be trying to acknowledge that. It's an interesting thing about Chiron, because, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just piggybacking on what you were saying. There is something about counting the cost.
Yes.
So in some ways, you've got to go into what you think is the projected future.
Yeah.
And go 10 steps ahead. If I do this, this might happen. Would I be okay with that?
Yes, definitely. Another thing about Chiron is the transit is only 50 years, right? And so previous generations of us, life expectancy has only recently sort of started to tick upward. So there's generations and generations of us where, that 50 was like you were lucky to get to 50. And a lot of us didn't get to 50. So a lot of these soul lessons were never learned. And so I think it's funny, because we're seeing now more than ever, like a shift sort of in the collective consciousness, and sort of quote unquote spiritual awakenings and stuff like that. And I think Chiron plays a large part in that, right? Because more of us now are hitting 50. And if you're any sort of way spiritually inclined, then you're going to be learning these lessons. And again, this is something on a soul level that you would be obsessed with throughout your life. So even if you're not necessarily spiritually inclined or religious or anything like that, you would still sort of, I think anyway, you would still learn this lesson. You would still, you know, kind of heal this wound eventually when you hit 50. But yeah, for me at 37, so it's squaring at the moment. So it's putting a lot of pressure and friction in that area. And I've definitely felt it in terms of sort of not necessarily always about the rushing, because I do know how to take a step back now and slow down the pace when I need to for a lot of things. But I think for me, because Taurus is also about manifestation, and so I've only just now started to realize that I create my own reality. And so like with that comes that manifestation, right? I never thought I could do it. I never thought I could manifest. Like I was always just like, no, it's not something that I'm good at. I don't know how to do it. I think if you looked at my chart, you would probably see there is a wound sort of with spirit as well for me. And something else with spirit in general. Like, it's a pretty where like there's a lot in my chart about belonging and the need to belong. And then also, like a wound with spirit as well. And then also I have Chiron in the 10th house with legacy. Like, it's just, it's a lot, it's a lot going on. But that friction, happened, and I've completely, like, I've stayed in the same sort of field, but I've completely switched gears. So instead of being behind the scenes of, creating content, writing content, that sort of thing, I'm now client facing. But inside of me, I can feel that this isn't the last step. Right? Like inside of me, I have, like, in the back of my mind, I'm hearing psychology a lot. And so it's like, should I just go ahead and make that flip now? So I'm, like one up on the game by the time I hit 50, like, what do I do here? So yeah, it's been interesting trying to, like, navigate that as well. But the other thing about sort of your Chiron return as well is it kind of activates Uranus in our chart. So Uranus, how would I say it? Because Uranus, we know, is like breakdown, breakthrough energy. But it's also about freedom, and it's also about sort of rebellion from what expectations are placed on us. And to me, I kind of interpret that as the divine, right? And so it's almost as if it's almost as if you're learning by the time you hit your Chiron return. So you're in a space now where you're learning to balance sort of your human experience with your divine nature. And I don't know if that rings true for you, but I feel like that's where you'll probably be. If it's not resonating now, I feel like you might find it in 2 years when the return actually happens, because you're just on the cusp of it, really. Like it's not fully happened yet, but
no, I think it does ring true. And the reason why is because, like, all of my plans for, like, in 2 years' time are about that balance of, experiencing being a human being, and all the joy and all the, I'm putting a lot of, I want to feel deeply satisfied in this human experience. But I know that a lot of my gifts will have space to be amplified. And I know that there's something legacy in it. And I do think about legacy. And I'm not thinking about it in terms of like a deposit, do you know what I mean? Account. I'm thinking about, the things that I've learned, the things that I know, the things that I've been shown, whether it be about what it means to be a human being, what it means to be a Black woman, what it means to still be connected to your ancestors. What does it mean to do a whole range of things? And so that kind of, that bridge kind of makes sense to me, that for the plans that I have in 2 years' time, that it is about, connecting my human experience with my what I would call my my soul gifts, which is, and my soul gifts are in relation to what I would classify as source energy. and the divine.
Mm.
So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Perfect. Have you had sort of any recently, and again, you may not have yet because it is still about 2 years away, but have you had any sort of gifts or talents sort of reveal themselves to you as of late? Like that you didn't know before, you know?
Not sure about, I mean, there's something about things that are already in your possession. So there are already gifts that are in my possession that maybe had been sitting under a big old tree.
Yeah.
You know, in the shade. But I'm definitely being more gravitating towards like the wisdom in herbs and the wisdom in you know, what our earth provides for us in terms of like helping us, our physical bodies, and that there's wisdom in there, and that's something that's come online relatively recently. Like intuitively being drawn to
like that neon sign lit up.
Yeah,
herbs.
Yeah, and it's like I'll say, oh yeah, you know, my liver, I'm sure my liver's slightly sluggish. Obviously, I've been telling you I'm doing this low carb thing, malarkey.
Yeah.
And being drawn to herbs to actually help my liver to process a lot better. And just being naturally intuitively drawn to things that maybe some of these herbs I've never heard of before.
Wow.
So
you'll need to give me some, I need to detox a liver or two.
But it's like listening to sometimes what your body needs. And I've been asking my body, what do you need?
That's a good one.
And liver, kidney, that kind of access there is definitely going, yeah, we could use your help. And I'm like, how can I be of service? And all these herbs come and I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Nice. That's awesome.
But stuff that's already in my possession. I think I said to you, I think I might have spoken to you about this, that even in my younger years, like I was drawn to herbs. It's very much on the dandelion root, burdock, you know, all of that type of stuff.
Right.
So some of it is stuff that was already in my possession, but hadn't really necessarily been fine-tuned.
Right.
I feel as if I'm going into, I know it's like Chiron and the wounded healer. I think I'm going into my fuck it phase. Do you know what I mean? Like, just fuck it. You know, this is my life. This is my time. And there are some things that I feel that I want to experience that are deeply satisfying. And I know that how I've been living up until now, you know, there's been some satisfying moments, but I've encountered a lot of things that are deeply unsatisfying.
Yeah, right.
So this whole kind of my plan, my get out of jail card plan for 2 years is a bit like, I'm making a break for it. I'm deciding that my intention is to experience this life much more deeply satisfied. In all those areas. And it's not about looking at other people, and it's not about asking for permission. It's about going, this is what I want to do. Do I have the funds to do it? What are some of the shifts that might actually be, you know, helpful for me anyway? So
cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens for you in the next couple of years. I'm really quite keen and interested for this journey, just because like it's your Chiron return, and I haven't seen a Chiron return before, although I haven't, I guess, knowingly witnessed a Chiron return, right? Like my mom hit 50 and my mom made a lot of changes in her life, and overcame a lot of sort of, you know, hardship and struggle and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure by the time she hit 50, she had leveled out quite significantly. So from just my like, hazy memory of that time. So yeah, I'm pretty keen and pretty excited to hear how it goes for you.
Yeah, me too. I feel like I'm on this like, it feels like I'm on this an adventure of a totally different kind.
Oh, definitely. Of
a totally different kind, and of my own choosing and of my own making. But I don't have to control it all. I just know that there's that opportunity there for me, should I wish to, and I accept it wholeheartedly.
Yep. Your Chiron return is definitely when you become fully aware that there's more to life. Do you know what I mean? And I think everything that you've just kind of said encapsulates that to the absolute T. It's like, no, there's more out there for me. I'm going to be more intentional about, getting it and achieving it, and making that life that I want to live.
Yeah. And it's not Hollywood. It's not, it's not like my life is all Instagram perfect. No, the plan is all down pat and all. No, it's not. I just have this deep sense that I have the opportunity to gravitate to something that is something that I've wanted, but also that will be deeply satisfying for me.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
yeah.
I think as long as you
know it all.
No, and you won't, you know what I mean? Because a lot of that is going to be intuitive. Like a lot of that's just going to come to you, just like the roots came to you. Like, this is what we need. And you were like, shit, let me get to the store.
No, I went to the store. I looked there, and there it was. It was there on the thing. I was like, what? And then yesterday, another herb. I went to my regular health food store.
Yeah.
I looked down the bottom. I never looked down at the bottom of this, like
the
last one
was
there, and I was like, damn, man. I'm buying you. I don't care how expensive you are, because there's no price on this, but I don't care. I'm buying you.
That's great though. Anything?
Yeah. So when people are looking at their like natal charts, and I know in the beginning you said that Chiron is in Aries in the 11th house. 10th house. How do people read? How should people try to translate that? Because that's like three separate things. So one is the sign.
Yep.
And the other one is the house, and obviously the other bit is the Chiron bit.
Yeah.
How do you put those three things together to make any sense?
That's good question. So essentially it's like they're all sort of pieces in the puzzle, right? So Chiron, we know, is the wounded healer. It's where your deepest wound is. That's what that glyph represents. And so we look for that. If we want to know about Chiron and how Chiron is sort of acting or moving in your life, then we find that glyph in your chart. In your chart, it's in the 10th house, which is ruled by Aries. So once we find out where they are, it's like, okay, it's in Aries. All right. Aries is about the ego. It's about assertiveness. It's about determination. It's about, getting shit done, essentially. 10th house is about work, career, legacy. So then we can say, okay, well, if Chiron is our deepest wound and Angela's got Chiron and Aries in the 10th house, then there's a wound in somewhere in terms of her career, in terms of her legacy, in terms of her sort of public life. And it kind of operates. So that's how it plays out. It plays out in that area of your life. And so the state of awareness of it, or like, what it actually is something to do with Aries energy. It's something to do with your ego. It's something to do with your assertiveness. It's something to do with your, determination. You know what I mean? Like those sorts of things. Now, the other way we have to look at it, which I didn't cover during the episode, was we also have to look at the aspects that is being made to Chiron. I actually did look at your chart, and you've got Chiron squaring your moon, your Mercury, and your Venus. So that means there's a little bit of friction happening across all of those things. So we know a moon is about our emotions. That's our emotional sort of state. Mercury is how we think. That's our communication style. That's, all of that stuff. And Venus is about our creativity and our love. A lot of people don't know that about Venus. Sorry?
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, you've got those squares happening. You've got it sextile to Saturn, and you've got it in opposition to Uranus. So, that's interesting. It's opposing Uranus, which is your your breakthrough energy. We'll chat about that offline.
Okay.
Just because I got to look into that a little bit more. Like that's
Cool.
That's interesting to me, because it taps, like I was saying, your Chiron return taps into your Uranus energy, and sort of you reconciling your human life with your divinity, essentially. But if you've got that opposing, then there might be something there might be something to work out there as well, in addition to what's happening. So yeah, that's how you do that. And so like, if you're looking at your chart and, Chiron is pretty down the line in terms of what most people want to know about, right? Like they want to know about their sun. They want to know about their love life. They want to know about all of these things. So essentially you just have to know what each planet represents. So your Venus is love and creativity. So if you want to know about love and creativity in your life, you look for the Venus symbol, which is just a circle with a, the female symbol, I think is what it is. Yeah. Or woman, female. Jesus, I sound like a fuckboy. Saying female. So you look for that symbol, and that's your Venus. And then whatever house that's in, that's where that plays out in your life, and whatever rules that house is. So like, for instance, your Venus is in your first house, which is in Cancer. So that's where yours plays out. Now your first house is about yourself. It's like your how you present yourself essentially to the world. And then Cancer, I don't know a ton about Cancer. I haven't done a ton of research on Cancer. I just haven't come across it as much. Clearly I need to work on that. But from what I know, Cancer is, I don't want to say, I'd rather say, a lot of people would say emotional, but I would lean more toward nurturing. I feel like Cancer is mother energy, right? Like if you think about Cancers in your life, and you guys can tell me in the comments, but if you know a Cancer in your life, let me know if you feel like they're, like mother energy, like very nurturing, like you feel very, safe and loved and, understood and well protected when you're around them. That's how I interpret Cancer energy, as opposed to just like emotional, because if we're honest, everybody's emotional on some level. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, I'm emotional too. I just don't deal with them. That's it. That's all. But yeah, so but that's like Venus is also your creativity. So it'd be interesting to look at how that plays out. And I think we can see that in the paintings sort of behind you on your wall, because you did those, yeah?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So that creativity is playing out in sort of how you express yourself. But that's how you would do it. And so like the moon symbol, you find that's where your emotion state is. The Mercury, that's how you think, all of that jazz. And then we might do another episode where we dig into the aspects a little bit, so that you can at least understand what the aspects represent, right? Like when I say square, when something's squaring something, that's pressure, that's friction. That means those two energies are going head to head. If it's, I guess we're doing the episode now. If it's, if it's a trine, that means they're harmonizing, they're working together.
Oh, okay.
So there's a few other ones, like there's sextile, there's conjunction.
Conjunct, you said.
Conjunct, that's when they're on top of each other and they kind of work together. So like Like if your sun and your Mercury, like the sun, Mercury is like one of the fastest, Mars and Mercury are both like two of the fastest planets that move around around the sun. So, and Mercury is always going to be fairly close to your sun. It's always going to be either ahead of it, behind it, or right on top of it. And how I like to look at it, or like how my spiritual coach has us look at it sometimes, is a good little tidbit to know is that if your Mercury is ahead of your sun, then that means you're a forward thinker. You're always thinking about the future. You're always, head in the clouds sort of thing. If your Mercury is behind your sun, then you think a lot about the past. Like you're someone that digs into the past a lot. If your Mercury is conjunct, which is really close to or on top of, then obviously you're a very present thinker, but you're also very quick with it. Like you're a quick thinker. Your mind, is always moving. So I'll just take a quick look at yours. Yours is ahead of yours.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's true for you, if you feel like you think about the future a lot, or if you're a forward thinking sort of person. Mine is behind. I definitely think about the past a lot. Like I'm always trying to figure out, what did that mean? How can I change that?
And I've moved on. And I'm like, okay, yeah.
Right, exactly. Cool. Well, yeah, that's all did you have any other questions?
Brilliant. No, but I'm sure in subsequent podcasts, I'm going to have lots and lots of questions, because my questions were really about what does conjunct and opposing and you've already just you've just kind of really explained that really, really well. So thank you. So that would have been my question.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, no. So that was amazing. It's amazing, like the connection between us and the stars and how we interpret that. It's pretty amazing.
It is.
Pretty amazing.
And I forgot to mention that I'm actually living on my Chiron line at the moment in Melbourne. And so that's the last thing I'll say is, that plays out. So that energy is very prominent in my life. And I feel like that's definitely what I've been feeling every time that I've lived here twice, from 2009 to 2013. And then I moved back in 2018. And it's like both times there was always a situation with work specifically, where I just had to make some shifts. Right. And I think now I'm coming to a place where I am sort of moving in the right direction when it comes to how I present myself at work and what I create. And so like, because of my Chiron being in Taurus, and it's also about manifestation, it was like, I feel like I've gotten to a place where I've manifested the sort of environment that I want to be in. Yeah. Because I had to look at what I was in before, and I was like, this isn't working for me. I need an environment that's more collaborative. I need an environment that really, sort of supports and pushes supports, but also challenges, right? Like I need both of those things so that I don't become complacent. So, because I can. So I managed to kind of make that happen. So Chiron is a very powerful sort of energy that I think a lot of us could stand to pay a little bit more attention to, and learn to know what those lessons are, and to know what that wound is, so that you can really focus on kind of overcoming it. Because by the time your Chiron return comes around, you won't know yourself.
That is amazing. Key, thank you so much. And I know that you say that you're just learning about astrology, but the knowledge that you're dropping so far, it's like you're really getting your head around that and being able to communicate that to people. And for me, and I can go, I really understand that actually resonates. And there's no way that you would know any of that stuff There's
Yeah.
no way that you would know that, you know, in the next 2 years that, you know, all of my plans and all the things that I've talked about in this podcast. So, and I would say, wow, I think, you know, astrology is something that definitely is a gift for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and a gift for us as well. And definitely, I'd love to incorporate a little bit more of the, you know, what the stars are saying. In this podcast, which we will do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool.
Fabulous.
All right. Well, I'll just let the audience know the next episode, we're actually starting a quick, I guess, mini series called Sister Love, which I'm super excited about. And our first special guest will be my sister, Dr. Kai Nkosi. So I'll tell you guys a little bit more about her on, you know, before we get the show started and everything. But super excited. Can't wait to have her on. We're going to do a little bit of a discussion about tarot and astrology, and also just learn her story about, you know, how she got to where she is. And yeah, it's going to be pretty amazing. I'm pretty excited. So cool. So make sure you like, follow, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll be back in the next couple of weeks. Peace.